The International Criminal Court is an international court formally established in 2002 for the purpose of prosecuting individuals for the crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, crimes of aggression, and war crimes. Since the inception of the court, it has tried a number of individuals who are either political leaders or militants. In this video, we want to look at some of the people the ICC has tried, the offences for which they were tried, the verdicts passed on them, and the sentence handed down to them. Thomas Lubanga was a warlord from the Democratic Republic of Congo. He was the founder of a rebel group known as the Union of Congolese Patriots. This group was a main actor in a conflict that happened in Congo between 1999 and 2003. In 2006, he was arrested in connection to the part he played in the conflict. Rebels under his command were accused of massive human rights violation, ethnic massacres, murder, torture, rape, mutilation, and using child soldiers. Lubanga's trial before the ICC started in 2009 when he was charged with war crimes stemming from the fact that he conscripted and enlisted children under the age of 15 years and used them to participate actively in hostilities. In 2012, he was convicted and sentenced to 14 years of imprisonment. His conviction happened to be the first conviction handed down to an individual by the ICC. Lubanga was released from prison just last year after he had served his prison term. Germain KATANGA is from Congo and was a former leader of an armed group known as the Patriotic Resistance Force in Ituri. He was arrested in 2005 by Congolese authorities in connection with the killing of 9 United Nations peacekeepers. In 2007, he was surrendered to the ICC to stand trial. He was charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity stemming from attacks on a village known as Bogoro in 2003. It was alleged that rebels under Katanga's command committed the war crimes by killing nothing less than 200 civilians, imprisoning survivors in a room filled with corpses, sexually enslaving women and girls, destruction of properties, and pillaging. In 2014, he was found guilty of war crimes and was sentenced to 12 years imprisonment. His conviction happened to be the second ever conviction by the ICC. However, his jail term officially ended in 2016 after an appeal for sentence reduction was filed on his behalf, and the appeal was. Jean-Pierre Bemba Gombo was the vice president of Congo between 2003 and 2006. He was also the leader of the military arm of a political group known as the Movement for the Liberation of Congo. He was arrested in 2008 for war crimes and crimes against humanity. His trial before the ICC started in 2010. The Office of the Prosecutor of the ICC alleged that MLC fighters under Gombo's command and to its knowledge committed war crimes in the neighboring country of Central African Republic. The circumstance that gave birth to the alleged crimes was that between 2002 and 2003, the then president of Central African Republic, Ange Felix Potassi, invited MLC fighters to come to his country to quell a coup attempt. The case of the Office of the Prosecutor was that during the attempt to quell the coup, MLC fighters under Gombo's command committed various atrocities such as rape and murder against civilians, and Gombo failed to stop them from committing the atrocities. In 2016, the ICC convicted him of the crimes with which he was charged, and he was sentenced to 18 years of imprisonment. In 2018, he appealed against his conviction, and in a judgment supported by 3 out of 5 judges, His conviction was quashed by the appeals chamber of the ICC after he had spent 10 years in prison. The reason given by the appeal court for quashing his conviction was that MLC fighters were operating in a foreign land under Gombo's command. He was in Congo, while his soldiers were in another country, Central African Republic. He was a remote commander, and so there were limitations on his ability to take measures restraining his soldiers. Bemba also stood trial before the ICC with 4 of his associates in connection with another offense. They were charged with the offense of witness tampering, which occurred during Bemba's original trial. It was alleged that they offered monetary incentives and instructions to witnesses to provide false testimonies. They were tried for this offense between 2015 and 2017. Gombo was convicted of this offense and was sentenced to a term of 1 year imprisonment and a fine of 300,000 euros. Laurent Gbagbo was the president of Ivory Coast from the year 2000 until his arrest in 2011. His arrest was in connection with crimes allegedly committed in the wake of the 2010 presidential election in Ivory Coast. After the conduct of the presidential election, Gbagbo's opponent, Alassane Ouattara, was declared the winner of the election by the country's electoral commission. The international community also recognized Ouattara as the winner of the election. However, the country's constitutional council, which is the judicial body with the power to certify and announce final elections results, declared Gbagbo the winner of the election. Gbagbo also rejected the results announced by the country's electoral commission. Gbagbo, who was the incumbent president, then refused to cede power to Ouattara. Later in 2010, both Gbagbo and Ouattara assumed the office of the president of the country. This led to ethnic and political violence in which at least 3,000 people died and thousands of people were injured or missing, many were raped, and more than 100,000 people were displaced. In connection with this conflict, Gbagbo was arraigned before the ICC in 2016 for crimes against humanity. He was accused of murder, rape, attempted murder, and persecution. These crimes were allegedly committed against a group of women who protested in support of Ouattara. In 2019, the ICC accused Gbagbo of all the charges leveled against him on the ground that the prosecutor did not sufficiently satisfy the burden of proof. The prosecutor appealed against this decision, and in March of this year, the appeals chamber of the ICC upheld Gbagbo's accuser. Charles-Blé Goudé is a politician from Ivory Coast. He was also indicted in the 2010 post-election violence in the country by the Office of the Prosecutor of the ICC. He was charged with the same crimes as Laurent Gbagbo in relation to alleged attacks on the supporters of their political rival, Alassane Ouattara. Both Blé Goudé and Gbagbo were jointly tried together at the ICC. In 2019, he was accused of crime against humanity leveled against. Mathieu Chui was once a colonel in the Congolese army, and he was once a senior commander in militia groups in Congo. He was arrested by Congolese authorities in 2008, and he was surrendered to the ICC to stand trial on counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The counts include murder, sexual slavery, using children as soldiers, and other crimes. He was tried jointly with Germain KATANGA in connection with the attack on the Congolese village of Bogoro. He was accused in 2012 on the ground that prosecutors have not proved their case beyond reasonable doubt that Chui was responsible for the crimes. The judgment was appealed, but the appeals chambers of the ICC upheld his acquittal in 2015. Ahmad Al-Faqi Al-Mahdi was a member of a militia group known as Ansar Edain. The group seeks to impose Sharia law in North Africa. He was arrested by the government of Niger and surrendered to the ICC to answer for his crimes. He was charged with war crimes for destroying religious and historic monuments. It was alleged that he destroyed 10 different monuments, one of which was a World Heritage Site. These destructions were carried out in the ancient city of Timbuktu in Mali in 2012. When Al-Mahdi was brought before the ICC, he pleaded guilty to the charges leveled against him and he was sentenced to 9 years of imprisonment in 2016. His trial marked the first time the ICC tried the destruction of cultural heritage as a war crime. It was also the first time an individual pleaded guilty to a charge before the ICC. Bosco Ntaganda was a military chief of staff in National Congress for the Defense of the People, which was a militia group operating in the Democratic Republic of Congo. He was declared wanted by the ICC for war crimes in 2006. He remained at large until 2013 when he voluntarily handed himself to the US Embassy in Rwanda and asked to be transferred to the ICC. His trial before the ICC started in 2015. He was charged with counts on war crimes and crimes against humanity. The counts include murder, rape, sexual slavery, using children as soldiers, persecution, forcible transfer and deportation, pillage, and intentionally directing attacks against civilians. These crimes were allegedly committed in Ituri, which was in the Democratic Republic of Congo between 2002 and 2003. In 2019, he was found guilty of all these crimes and he was sentenced to 30 years of imprisonment. This term of imprisonment is the longest ever handed down by the ICC. He appealed his conviction, but the appeals chamber of the ICC rejected his appeal. Dominic Ongwen was abducted when he was a child and he was enlisted as a child soldier. He rose through the ranks and became a commander of one of the brigades of a Ugandan guerrilla group known as Lord's Resistance Army. He was indicted for war crimes and crimes against humanity. His trial before the ICC started in 2016. He was accused of using children as soldiers. He was also accused of committing murder, rape, and enslavement in an IDP camp in northern Uganda. And earlier this year, he was convicted of the crimes leveled against him and sentenced to 25 years of imprisonment. So, those are some of the people that has been tried by the ICC. Before you go, if you haven't, please subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon.